Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill, we have a lot to discuss today. I'm curious, though, because you do a radio show right before we come on and do a live. We're live, by the way. If you're joining us live on YouTube, fantastic. If you're not, you should check us out on YouTube. We're live every day, noon Eastern. You can find us over on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. But you do a radio show. What was the reaction? Because we live in LA. What was the reaction to those two clowns who got ejected from the World Series last night?
My reaction was ban those bozos for life from baseball. Did you see that one of the guys, season ticket holder, said he thinks he's coming back tonight to the game?
Absolutely not. They should never be allowed within 1,000 yards of a baseball stadium. That's the most, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've all seen interactions and, Bartman and whatever, and like accidentally, Bartman had to go into witness protection for doing something that was completely innocent. And this guy is getting interviewed by media outlets and saying he's coming back.
That's the difference between 2024 and 2000 and whatever that was. By the way, I was at that Bartman game. I couldn't get tickets or afford them, so I was on Waveland, like partying. But you could hear. I'm a Cubs fan. You could hear you could hear Wrigley make a sound of. You could hear a tear in the fabric of the universe before you heard it on the radio because there was a delay. You could sense it from the other side of the left field.
That poor dude was ostracized, vilified. Bartman, I'm talking about, and then this guy has no shame. So it's
one of these guys that like sprained Mookie Betts' wrist or something. What if they injured him?
I was watching them. I'm like, I can't believe that these guys are out on Maine, like all over Twitter this morning, being like, "Oh, if the ball comes near us, we're gonna D up." Like you're playing, center in the paint or something. It's ridiculous.
Mookie. I mean, I was thinking about the Malice in the Palace over this because it's a different thing. It's hard. You have to climb over the wall, but if they injure Mookie Betts, there would have been a little bit of like room for a little boxing in the Bronx or whatever the hell we would have called it because. You can't physically hold down
outrageous.
players.
Absolutely outrageous. I am glad, however, that you brought up the Malice in the Palace because later in the show, we're talking about Joe Mazzulla's latest quirky ideas. Then we'd have something to go deal with the Malice in the Palace. He's outrageous, but we love him. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about the Nuggets. We'll call it a shaky start, but they get another OT win. And then the Wolves and the Mavs went at it again with the usual results. But first, Bill, I don't really want to get into this, but we got to get into this. We got a Joel Embiid update. The league investigation found that the Sixers, they ended up finding the Sixers for public statements, including those made by Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse that were, quote, inconsistent with Joel Embiid's health status, fine of $100,000. Here's the germane part from the statement. Quote, the league's investigation also confirmed that Embiid has been unable to play in the 76ers regular season games this season due to a left knee condition, and therefore his games missed have not violated the player participation policy. Evidently, Bill, the league is saying that Embiid is in fact hurt.
Yes, he's hurt. Which, okay.
Go ahead.
Bad news for you. The irony of this is not lost on me that it took the NBA doing a fake investigation because it wasn't a big deal because they always look into these things to reveal what Philly should have told us from the beginning, which is actually he's just injured instead of what felt like the coy language of the people in charge. Like it's backwards. It should be Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse saying he's hurt. That's why he's not playing. We want him out there. And the league saying, well, there's some shenanigans here. It's so inverted. It's like, just say he's hurt.
It makes no sense to me at all. And it has continued to make no sense to me because the Sixers just cannot stop being the Sixers. I had been on this program and on Twitter saying it feels to me like the Sixers had this plan where Joel Embiid, after last season, texted with Daryl Morey and said, we have to do whatever we have to do to keep me healthy this year. And then, hey, it's October. We'll bring him along in November. This is part of our plan. He's not going to play 70 games this season. He's not going to play 65 games this season. If he even had 60, it'll be a miracle. And this was just all of them being like, we're going to slowly ramp him up. Instead, the league is like, no, he's hurt. Which, again, as you mentioned, why didn't they just tell us this? And the weird part here, Bill, or I guess not weird because this is like pretty much standard operating procedure for the Sixers. This happens and has happened over the last decade with a different general manager, multiple different general managers, multiple different coaches. and multiple different players. So it's almost like there's some sort of like, and also different media relations people. Like they keep changing all of these personnel, but this continues to happen for the Sixers where they fail to communicate these injuries properly or end up hiding stuff for reasons surpassing understanding. It doesn't make any sense. It's like an organization, like orthodoxy that gets passed down from generation to generation.
It's such an interesting micro view of like up close and personal, the Sixers' historical dysfunction, to your point, that somehow is sticky and contagious. And even if you change people, it travels to them. Let me give you a micro view that people have given me around the league, which I thought was interesting. And it's just maybe an additional layer to this, because it is strange if the guy's hurt that you go out of your way to basically like, we're going to just sit the dude. So here's what a couple executives sort of how they put it to me, that this is the sort of, because obviously I like Daryl Morey. I think you do too, but he's brash. He's a brash guy, right?
Yeah.
And he got himself in trouble with China, and he said James Harden hates him, and he's an interesting brat, and he's a talk. He likes to talk. That this is basically an executive in Daryl Morey being candid in a way maybe other executives aren't, but reflects this view that the NBA's player policy and this focus on guys having to play and the 65 game threshold for awards and the automatic investigations, people think it's a bunch of crap. Like there is a tension. I remember last year, when we were doing the podcast last year, I remember I was in New York, and it was at a time when there was a lot of momentum towards, should we change this? Is this policy for awards a one and done thing? It's not working. Teams hate it. Players hate it. People are pissed off. And I went and I had lunch with a pretty high level NBA league office person, right? And this is one of these like sort of background conversations. I'm not going to quote them. We've known each other for years. There's a lot of trust. So he's not going to BS me. And I was just struck by how resolute he was. Like, no, we're doing this. Like, this is the policy and we're not changing. I was like, oh, I'm okay, man. Like, I'm not quoting you. Like, we're having a beer. Just what are you really going to do? He's like, no, like this, the league. So my point is, I think also the Sixers thing reflects the fact that the league, their view, Adam Silver's view, right? And everyone that works for Adam Silver in New York is, no, we are going to make sure that guys are sitting out for the right reasons. And the view around the NBA of people that actually run teams is, it's hard to keep guys healthy. Everybody's injured. This is stupid. You guys have to. So I think there's some tension there between the league and teams too.
Which, okay, fine. The league wants this policy, and they did coax a lot of players into playing more games than they otherwise might have. Like last year, LeBron and AD. Halliburton came back, probably shouldn't have, and we can get into how Halliburton hasn't. Yeah, I mean, but they did get some guys to come out. But this isn't that, evidently. If it was just, which I thought it was the Sixers going, hey, we're going to thumb our nose at this policy. We don't care about it. It's October. We only care about April and making sure that Joel Embiid is upright. That's something I can get behind. If he's actually hurt, which is what the league investigation is saying is the case, then why not just say that? What do you gain from being
that's
like,
the point. I think it is Daryl Morey saying the quiet part out, just wanting to thumb his nose at the league. When, to your point, the guy's actually hurt. Like, Daryl, if you want to challenge the league on this, wait until Embiid's not injured to do it. But I think it reflects how much these executives are pissed off at Adam Silver and the league for forcing these rules. And the great irony being, you can do that and you'll still get fined when you actually sit Embiid when he's healthy, but he's hurt. So just say that he's hurt and save your bullets for later, man.
Just say that he's hurt and save your bullets for later. I can't tell you how exhausted I am about a decade of this with all these different coaches and general managers and players. And especially like when the media goes and tries to ask questions about it and they get like a little touchy. So yesterday, that's exactly what happened. So the statement comes out from the league office, and then the Sixers put out a statement saying that both Paul George and Joel Embiid were, quote, participants. No, they were in parts of practice. It was very vague, right?
It was so
naturally,
dumb.
What do we do as media people? Hey, Nick Nurse has media avail, and you go to him and you go, hey, what's going on with Joel Embiid? And that's what happened yesterday. But Nick Nurse decided to give him the Heisman. Here's what happened.
With Joel's plan,
I'm not going to answer. Go ahead. Anybody else got anything?
What was different?
They've given you the updates on that, right? They've given you the updates on Joel.
I think part of that, Bill, is that he was named specifically in the league statement, saying that there were incorrect statements made by both, or inconsistent statements made by both Morey and Nick Nurse, and he got a little gun shy there. But again, to your point, what are we doing here? He's hurt. You saw the statement. I'd love, he was in practice for a little bit. We don't have a timetable yet. Like a little bit of just like being forthright and forthcoming as opposed to this like subterfuge.
And here's the thing. I don't think I could be wrong because I've talked to people there and I've asked. I don't think they know on Embiid. I think they know on Paul George. They're not really saying, but I think they know when Paul George is going to play, generally speaking. I think they don't know on Embiid, which again, more bad news for you. I'm sorry. Dude, we've been working together for a year. It's just like,
don't feel sorry for me or Sixers fans. Anybody from Philadelphia is completely used to this. This is something that we're comfortable in, Philadelphians, where you're just like, oh, it's going terribly. Of course it is. It never goes right for this team. It hasn't gone right for this team since Allen Iverson took them to the finals in 2001, right? This is the norm. But to pretend like, oh no, he didn't suffer a setback. This is all part of our like bringing him along slowly plan. Like, are you just trying to like avoid panic in the streets? What's the deal?
Well, here's another thing, and maybe this is in part to protect Joel Embiid because this hasn't gotten enough run, including for me. You can't go play the Olympics and then not play for the Sixers when they just went out and got Paul George and really reconstructed the entire team. And Embiid's window is shorter, I think it's fair to guess, than most stars, and shrinking maybe quicker than because of his size and his injury history. So it's maybe some of this is a defensiveness because this should be a bad look for Embiid. You were hurt all last year. You hobbled your way through the playoffs against the Knicks. You played well, but didn't win that series. And then, so Ashley, when Ash was doing this with us, Ash was right? Like, and I went at her and I was wrong. Ash, you were right. You can't play in the Olympics if you're not going to be healthy now. What are you doing, man?
I mean, absolutely. Like, my whole position over the Olympics was the guy wants to play basketball. He's had a limited opportunity to play basketball because he's been injured so often in his career. He only played 39 games last season. He comes back for the postseason, as you mentioned, where he's playing on one leg with half a face, and he still played pretty well. And he comes out of that and he's like, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to play in the Olympics. It's hard to tell a guy no, right? However, if you have enough wherewithal to text Daryl Morey after the regular season and go, yo, we have to do whatever we can to keep me healthy so that I can be ready for the postseason. And then on top of that, it would seem at cross purpose to go, I'm going to Paris. I'm playing in the Olympics. Like,
yep, that's it. And by the way,
a little bit tough.
And you're right. It's hard to tell a guy no. It's his job to tell him. So when it comes to the Olympics, it's Joel Embiid's job. So this is an Embiid problem. This isn't a Daryl Morey problem. This isn't a Steve Kerr problem. This isn't a USA. This is a Joel Embiid problem. And the law. If he misses 6 games or 8 games, if he misses 15 games, right? If we're back to another season where he's playing in the 40s,
so dumb. It's the dumbest. It's the dumbest team.
Dark cloud.
Like, I've spent an inordinate amount of time in my life on Philadelphia sports. That is by far the dumbest of all of the dumb teams that I end up spending too much energy on. And the other thing here that sucks is like just injuries writ large in the league. Like, Embiid is obviously a significant one, right? Paul George is a significant one. We don't know what the timetable is. I think you're right. I think PG is probably back sooner than later, and who knows on Embiid, right? But we had all of this like excitement over this team. But then when you look around the league, there's so many injuries to start the season already. Steph Curry is out. DeJounte Murray broke his hand. Bogdanovic, he's going to be out 4 weeks with a hamstring. Lonzo just hurt his wrist. He came back. Everybody's excited. Now he's out for 10 days at least. Kristaps Porzingis, he might not be back. Not like the Celtics need him, but still, he might not be back till December. Kawhi is out indefinitely.
Why?
And in a league where
DeJounte Murray, you hit Murray.
DeJounte Murray in a league where it's obviously built around stars. They implement this 65 game threshold in order to get the stars on the court and the player participation policy. And now these guys are not out there anyway.
Well, so again, circling back to the conversations I had with a bunch of executives and GMs in the last few days, they'll tell you, like, they think that there's going to be a correlation proven between guys coming back, or maybe not come back, playing more games than they otherwise would have to hit those thresholds for awards, and just the general pressure, and guys getting injured this year, next year. Because people think it's going to have a compounding effect, right? It's not just you force yourself to play 65 games and in 2023-24, you're Kawhi Leonard, you get hurt in the playoffs. It's what does that do to the wear and tear of your body in the next season? And then if you try to hit that mark again, so that we don't know, there's no longitudinal data. This sort of policy has been in place for a single season we're 365 days into it. But there are people that worry that we're going to look back at year 2 or 3 or 4 of the NBA really forcefully saying stars going to play. And I was for it. So this isn't easy. And it's going to turn out that it was actually detrimental to the long-term health of a lot of players.
I would like them to play from an entertainment standpoint. I just like this whole thing is just such a mess. And then on top of that, there are ripple effects here, as you can see on the Chiron there. Like the conference seeding is going to matter eventually, right? Like we saw it matter last year. Embiid goes out. Everybody it doesn't matter as long as he's back for the playoffs. Well, it did matter because they had to first they had to get out of the play-in, and then they end up with the Knicks in the first round, and that was a tough out for them, and they end up getting bounced in the first round instead of the second round per usual. And the Western Conference especially, right? Like, so, the Warriors have looked pretty good even without Steph, and Buddy Hield can't miss a shot except for one game, right?
He's
but
back,
still,
baby.
There's not a lot of margin for error, right? I mean, DeJounte and the Pels, they don't have a lot of room for error. Aside from the Celtics in the Eastern Conference, every team is going to be fighting 2 through 10.
There's a world where if there's enough injuries and or if Denver is this sort of, takes a step back a little bit, where seeds 4 through 12, 4 or 5 or 6 games could be 5 to 10, 11 or 4 to. I think it could be historically cramped to your point. And so you're guys missing sizable time, 10 games. It could be hugely significant in a team being the 9 seed instead of the 5 seed, which obviously is a big deal if you're trying to be an NBA champion.
Turn injuries off. We've had enough. Yeah. And in conclusion, disband the Philadelphia 76ers.
Is that the conclusion?
That's it. Yes. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. We're going to take a quick break, and I needed a little palate cleanser after that. So on the other side, we're going to talk about Joe Mazzulla, who has some wild ideas about rule changes for the NBA. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
Sunday, red-hot QBs take center stage. A showdown in the dog pound. And the stars are set to light up the late afternoon. Now that's a CBS Sports Sunday.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John Gonzalez and Bill Ryder hanging out live on YouTube on a Wednesday. Just a reminder as well that you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave us a comment on this episode. Just look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, and you can tell us what you think about the show or leave us a question. You might have a question, for example, about Joe Mazzulla's big ideas. Bill, you brought this to our attention yesterday in the chat. It was fantastic. So Joe Mazzulla went on a radio station in Boston, Boston Sports Radio 98.5, the Zolak and Betran show. And he was asked, hey, Joe, do you have any ideas for rule changes? And this is what he came up with.
The biggest thing that we rob people of from an entertainment standpoint is you can't fight anymore. We should just bring back, fighting.
I'm not against that. I'm not against those days in the NBA.
What's more, you want to talk about robbing the league of entertainment. What's more entertaining than a little scuffle?
He's so serious, dude.
You think he's serious there because he paused?
I do. They paused because they were like, what is he saying? What are the words? Yeah, I think he's a crazy person in all the good ways. Yes.
He also thought that they should have power plays after certain.
I heard that. Yeah,
fouls that
for 2 or 3 minutes or 4 passes.
Yeah, like Vivek. Remember Vivek Ranadive, the Kings owner, where he said, maybe we'll cherry pick a little bit and leave a guy down on offense. This is kind of like Joe Mazzulla's idea, but to the fighting idea, what?
I like it. I'm here for it. Okay. So full disclosure, I think that I'm going to go baseball all the way back to it's like a baseball little, those stupid crossover shows, right? Where Always Sunny in Philly is doing a crossover show with some school show I should watch, but don't watch.
Abbott Elementary. It's very good.
Yeah.
You should watch it.
2 episodes. Okay. I'll do that. I think baseball's gotten soft. I think guys should be able to charge the mound. I think guys can't take the inside part of the plate anymore. Pitchers, I think it's ridiculous every now and then. Robin Ventura needs to charge the mound and just get his ass kicked by Nolan Ryan. By an 82-year-old Nolan Ryan. Just I take steers, boy. Yeah, 100%. And I think to a degree, I actually think there's a little bit of this. I would like guys be able to get a little physical. Do I want hockey style sort of moments where the 2 enforcers don't have gloves, so they just start punching each other in the face. No, I don't need an MMA match, but yeah, like if natural tensions run high and you can get some of this rivalry, guys being if two guys beat the living crap out of each other in an NBA game, like punch each other in the face like they did back in the day, how many games are you getting suspended now? A lot.
A lot
Of games.
Well, okay, so we just did a segment about player availability, and now we're like, right? I mean, like about player injuries and whatnot. The league, rightly after the Malice and the Palace, one for optics, and two for also like just the health of their players. We got to get this out of the game. There's no place for it. And they legislated it out, and now it's out, right? You can't leave the bench. You can't punch a guy. You can't do any of that stuff. If you pull a Draymond, you're going to be gone for a long time. And it makes sense because, one, the NBA is a big business. Two, entertainment-wise, despite Joe's idea that what's more entertaining than a fist fight, I would argue Steph Curry being available. You know,
basketball.
Like basketball. I would like to see my stars actually play basketball. Now, I will say, growing up, one of my favorite combos of players was Thump and Bump, Charles Barkley and Rick Mahorn, who used to, level the hell out of everybody, right? And like there's the iconic photo of Dr. J and Larry Bird with their hands around each other's throats. Like that kind of stuff back in the day, the physical 80s and 90s basketball I grew up on. I really did.
Bill Laimbeer. I grew up a Bulls fan, right? But like the Bad Boys and the Pistons and just the because their attitude, there was some menace there. It wasn't. So here's the thing about the NBA. Like, I don't know what the line is, but there is now sort of a false bravado and an unfair labeling of guys being fake tough guys. Because when guys jaw at each other, if you're an NBA player, you jaw at a guy, you get in a guy's face, you try to show him up, he can't punch you in the face. That wasn't true in the 80s. Like, there were certain guys that, right? So I don't know what the line is, and I don't need them to put an octagon in the middle of the floor when things go south in terms of guys getting mad at each other. But I mean, a little crazy people are brilliant people, and Joe Mazzulla is crazy in a good way. But he's a little. There's something here. I don't know how we shape it to be normal, but there's something here.
I think those kinds of altercations that I liked when I was a kid or in my teens or in my early 20s, in the same way that the NBA aged out of it, I'd like to believe that I aged out of it too, because sure, those things at the time were entertaining, but like when I stopped to think about it as an adult, like what do I really value more? And it is a business, and this is a workplace, and it's a professional setting, and all of these people paid their hard-earned money to see basketball. And I always kind of think too, like with hockey, hockey hasn't gotten rid of it, and I just don't understand why. Like, especially when there's so much money at stake with these dudes, like they're your assets. They're your talent, and you want your talent to be out there. But
I don't want Steph Curry getting punched. I'm not saying that you should be able to haul off. But Steph Curry's never going to do right. Right. It's never going to. It would be cool though if NBA teams, like in the second round, the Golden State Warriors draft an enforcer from Fresno State to protect Steph Curry.
They have one. His name is Draymond. Can you imagine?
Yeah, they do.
If you were allowed to. Draymond would be suspended for the entirety of the season. He'd play an Embiid.
Draymond Green saw that clip and probably called Mazzulla. I was like, bro, I'm with you. I'll sign the petition.
Trade. Get me to the Celtics. Yeah, love that. Well, that's our latest check-in with Joe Mazzulla, who continues to rise up my rankings. Bill, I was kind of like out on Joe Mazzulla, and then like the more that he does and the more that he talks, now I'm like, who's interesting? Joe Mazzulla. So
I don't think it's a bit. I think he definitely sits facing the front door when he's eating breakfast or whatever. I think he's watching the town. I say this and I mean it lovingly, but I mean it literally. He's a crazy person in a good way.
You need to do something for CBSSports.com with him, where you spend the day with him, an off day. What's Joe Mazzulla doing on an off day?
I mean, maybe would it be amazing if he's in a secret fight club? He's just out there fight clubbing.
Would not surprise me. I need you. Yeah. First rule. I need you to break that for me. Break that story.
All right, I'll work on it. All
right. We're going to take another break. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about basketball. The Nuggets picked up another win in overtime, a little shaky for them to start. And then the Mavs and the Wolves had a good game last night. We'll get into all of that after this. This is Beyond the Arc.
It's a team almost too good to be true.
You guys ain't ready for us.
Kick your game day off right as the Tops team tackles all the biggest headlines around the league.
Who's got two thumbs and loves this next segment?
Sunday mornings on CBS Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. Just a reminder that we are live on YouTube 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern time. You can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Starting with the Nuggets here, Bill. We have discussed that they've looked a little wonky, and they were wonky again last night for the second night in a row. They go to overtime against a team that not great. 2 nights ago, it was the Raps. They end up winning that game. Last night, it was the Nets. They end up winning that game too. Joker was outrageous last night. He went for 29, 18, and 16. Evidently, that is the first player. He is the first player in 62 years to reach that stat line per ESPN. I don't know like what benchmarks are there, but he saved them.
What's amazing, he did save them. And so a couple things. One, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I was watching the game,
okay,
and I wanted the Nuggets to lose. I went into the game thinking I wanted the Nuggets to win, and I don't know what's wrong with me. I was like, go Nets. Like, let's go. I think I just like chaos. But it struck me watching that game. This is so much like watching him with his national team where he is alone. It feels like he got some contributions offensively. They've been bad, I guess, defensively, but it's so like Michael Porter Jr. hit some shots that was a little bit better. And a lot of guys keep shooting up.
Not nearly.
No, he didn't take a lot of shots, but he hit some of the shots. I think he had 15 or 16 points or whatever it was. I sort of expected that team not to be very deep, like we talked about, but for him to have some Robins to his, I hate that expression, but whatever, I just used it, to his Batman. It now just feels like watching him play that he's doing these historic things and he's on his own. It's like he's playing with a bunch of non-NBA guys. It's weird to watch how everyone on his team is playing with him and not even remotely helping. You can't be carrying a team in games 3, 4, and 5 like this against bad teams and sustain this over a season. Even this guy can't. It's not possible.
I thought that they were going to lose last night. He saved them. He hit the game-winning shot, and then in overtime, or the shot to send them to overtime, and then in overtime, he really took over. And like his passing, his vision. I mean, we gush about the point center role that he plays, but he really does. Or when we talk about guys who make their teammates better, he's number one on my list. I mean, he just like the way he points everybody around, and like his court vision is outrageous. There was a play last night where he basically sealed off his defender and opened up a lane for Aaron Gordon, and then Aaron Gordon missed a little chippy, and then he was there to clean it up, and a little dish off pass to MPJ for an easy dunk, and like the way he was passing Christian Brown open so Christian Brown could hit shots. He looks so good, but I just like not nearly enough from that supporting cast. MPJ, there's such a disconnect with me because we've talked a lot about how they need more from him. I watch him play, Bill, and he looks like an NBA basketball player, right? He's big, he's athletic, he moves quickly, his shot looks beautiful.
He can shoot.
I'm like, why is this dude not just filling up the stat sheet every single night, especially on a team where, as Jamal Murray hasn't really like taken that step back to being the 1A to Joker's 1? Like, if it should be MPJ going, oh, there's a void here, I could step right into it.
There's no 1B. There's not even a 2 anything. I mean, it's. Yeah, I don't know. And we've talked a lot about MPJ because you need him to play at least with enough flashes of what you're describing so that you can get there, or that there's a market, as we've talked about, where maybe you can move him on for pieces. And you make I want to circle back. It's a great point. I've never thought of this, about how Joker, where he would rank in making people better. I think if you were to go like this, the last 10 years, this current era, he's on a Steph and LeBron level.
Oh yeah,
I think
I was going to say that's the group, right?
That's the group. I mean, there's sort of different reasons for it. Like I think Steph's gravity and sort of what the space, the literal space he creates for people doesn't get. Maybe it does now, but wasn't celebrated the way it should have been. And for LeBron, he makes guys better. But also I think there's also just when he was at his prime, he also just you and I could play on his team and we could play minutes and we would win because LeBron was there. I don't know. But like Joker, you're right. Like it's those 3 guys where their presence makes or gives the illusion of making everybody on that team better. And the fact that that's not really, I mean, he is creating easy buckets for guys. They won the game. But the fact that you can see the strain now a little bit, that it's hard for Joker is not a good sign for this basketball team.
No, it's not a good sign. Here's something else that's not a good sign. They gave up 139 points to the Brooklyn Nets.
To the net. Who cares if it's overtime? I was just looking up their defensive rating. It's early. But dude, actually, their offense isn't very good either. But their defense looks terrible. It doesn't look great. Defense.
And forget about the overtime coming, because I know people will go, oh, it's 139 points. It was overtime, right? Okay, 125 points in regulation to the Brooklyn Nets.
That's
alarming. Alarm bells should be going off and sirens and all that stuff. We've talked also about how last year they were last in 3-point field goals attempted. Last night, only 27 attempts, not nearly enough. And then I wanted to run this past you too. One of the guys that actually did help out last night was Russell Westbrook. He had 22 points.
He did.
He went 10 of 10 from the line. Are you buying any of that?
Didn't he hit 2 out of his 3-pointers?
Sure.
I think he did. I think
he might have. I just saw the 10 of 10 from the line, and I was like, all right.
Don't ever shoot threes.
No. Are you
No.
buying Russ at all?
No. No, I'm not. In fact, it's a great point. Like if you barely can beat the Nets in overtime, and it requires that Russell Westbrook, you're screwed.
You're in a lot of trouble.
You're not getting that from him night in, night out.
This is the way I look at it. I think that's the correct perspective from you. Maybe you and I have done too many shows together that, it's group agreement that we're aligned. So last night, this season on Thursdays and Fridays, on Thursdays, I'm going to be joined by Sam Quinn. On Fridays, you're going to be joined by Brad Botkin. Last night, I'm watching this. I'm having the exact same thoughts that you and I just discussed. And then we get updates and emails from the team at CBS Sports. Anytime anybody writes something, pops into our inbox, right? As I'm looking at this box score going, man, the Nuggets are screwed. I don't know what they're going to do, blah, blah, blah. In comes a story from my guy, Sam Quinn, who's going to have to answer for his sins tomorrow. I think that's going to be a new segment, producer Aaron, Sam's Sins every Thursday. Last week, by the way, Bill, he was defending Ben Simmons. So this week I'm going to make him defend Russell Westbrook, but a story comes in, Russell Westbrook back to basics. I'm like, Sam, what are we doing?
Look, I'm all for rooting for Russell. I actually like Russell Westbrook. I like the guy. I like his competitive spirit. He is not, he's not very good at basketball anymore. He's washed, dude. That's it. And so I didn't read the story. I saw the headline and I rolled my eyes so much I actually hurt myself. So I had to go lay down. So I'll be looking forward to. Yeah, I really did. I hurt like a muscle pull up here. So I'll be interested to see his defense. I could not read the story, but what does that even mean back? Well, by the way, Aaron, he hit both his threes and all of his free throws back to being a luck box for one game.
In Sam's defense, it was a far more innocuous story than the headline would have suggested. The headline was a little provocative, but basically it was Westbrook trying to get downhill, right? Like trying to get to the basket, which he, 5 years ago, fastest player in the NBA, end line to end line, where he would just beat everybody to the rim. And kind of like maybe he's not that fast anymore, but that's probably still his best skill set offensively. And he did get to the line 10 times last night and he made 10 of them. So I think that's something that he could be useful at. The other teams they've played so far are basically daring him to shoot from outside, Bill. And I think him not taking the bait is step number one. Now, again, they have a math problem. I don't know how they solve that, but it's certainly not with Russell Westbrook jacking like 6 threes a game.
But the thing is, and we've hit this, it speaks to the fact that this team is not constructed in a way that it's easy to take them seriously. Now you get to the playoffs. We saw this in the Olympics. You have the best player on earth. He can carry you through series. And maybe, we've seen Jamal Murray be, whatever reason, a much better player in the playoffs sometimes than the regular season. And so they're not going to miss the playoffs, right? So this can be the kind of team that is really infuriating and underwhelming and problematic. And maybe then they get really dangerous in the playoffs. But if Russell Westbrook playing at the level he did last night is a key requirement for success, you are going to fail in this stretch of his career. We've seen that. Yes. We saw the Clippers. We've seen it before that. It is not going to work.
Yeah, it was definitely on both of our radars last night. Also on our radar from last night, the Mavs and the Wolves in a rematch from the playoffs last year. Mavericks end up getting the better of the Wolves again. Yeah, there was a scary moment early where Luka, he limped off with a right leg injury after he collided with Jaden McDaniels. Now he comes back. Now, early in the game, it was all the time, Bill. He was He ended up with 37 points. It was a career high 24 points in the first quarter, the most points he's ever had in any quarter in his career. But then he cooled off, and now here come the Mavericks. Luka comes back. He ends up finishing with 24 points in 40 minutes, and he hits a dagger after missing his first 7 threes to end up winning that game. Super entertaining. Kind of feels a little, I don't want to get like too overly takey on one game at the beginning of the season.
Takey.
But it does kind of,
I like it when you get takey.
It feels a little like the Mavericks kind of have the Wolves number, right? Like the Wolves last night, they came out gangbusters, and it really felt like Ant wanted to prove, okay, whatever happened last season was last season, and I'm going to destroy you tonight. And then the Mavs went, we're a pretty good team.
And let me add, and Aaron, correct me, producer Aaron, I think Luka had, of his 24, I think more than half of those were in the fourth quarter. So it's like, the other thing is it's great to score 24 points in an opening quarter. It's amazing to be outstanding early, but you have to be able to close these games. And one of the things that separates Luka from a lot of guys in the NBA, and is going to separate him from Anthony Edwards and then these teams from each other until Ant gets there, is you got to be able to be the best player on the floor for the final 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And Luka hit that logo 3, and he basically was telling the crowd, I'm that guy, like, using some language we can't use here at CBS Sports. And so Anthony Edwards does a great job talking smack, right? And he's funny, and he's brash, and he does it in the offseason. He says, he insulted an entire era of players, right, at one point. But you've got to be able to channel that to the way that you play in the fourth quarter. And the guy that was that dude and played at that level and talked that level of SHIT in that game, it was Luka. And so that's the separation for me, is I think Ant will get there, but Luka's the guy that takes over fourth quarters, and that is why the Mavs won that game and why they're still the better team, and to your point, have their number, because their star knows how to do it under that kind of moment where Anthony Edwards is still talking about doing it, but we haven't seen enough of it late in those games. And he'll get there. He's a young dude, but you want to be that guy, you got to be that guy in the fourth quarter.
Luka also has a little bit of a safety net too, because Luka wasn't playing well to start, and Kyrie played great last night. He had 35 points. So while Luka was trying to figure it out, Kyrie's like, no worries, I got this. And then in the fourth quarter, Luka snapped out of it, and he was like, I'm going to be the guy who puts the Wolves in the ground again.
That happened in the playoffs last year, right? Like you had this sort of alternating, like Kyrie would have some off nights, especially, and then you'd have Luka, or the reverse would be true. Like you're right. You have you have this safety net because you have an actual co-star. Co-superstar.
So about that. So as we know, the Timberwolves go and sort of shuffle the deck during the offseason. They bring in Julius Randle, right? And Julius Randle last night took 13 shots. It was the second most on the team after Ant, who took 20. And you got to help me out on this, because I'm looking at Julius Randle's numbers, and numbers wise, he looks good. The numbers, like if you're just looking at
the box score, looks good. Yeah.
If you didn't even know who the player was, you'd be like, that guy played pretty good last night. He had 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists from Julius Randle, who I think frequently is a ball stopper. But as I'm watching the game last night, I didn't think those 7 assists were like Julius Randle getting everybody involved. There were multiple times when Julius Randle would like dribble into a double team, get caught under the basket, fumble with the ball, and then, he'd look up and see a guy in the corner and dish it out to him for a 3, and he'd can it. And I'm like, that's not a clean assist. That's not Julius Randle facilitating the offense. That's him looking for his, getting caught and going, oops. But numbers wise, it looks good. I still have a lot of concerns about his fit on that team.
We are seeing the same thing, and I guess it was a week ago. I should remember Timberwolves. I saw play the Lakers, I think, in the season opener, whatever it was. Like when I saw them in person, it looked like Julius Randle was one guy, and then the rest of the team was a different unit. Like he doesn't fit in yet. And you're right. If you look at the box score, it looks fine. If you watch him play, the fit's not there. Now this is a very poor man's version of this, but I covered that Heat team when LeBron and Wade and Bosh had that first year. And it took those guys, and they were much better players, a long time to figure it out. It does take players 20 to 25 games, they'll tell you, when you sort of have superstars come together. I don't know where Randall qualifies, but he's an important piece. I'm going to withhold judgment. You have to give him time, right? He's got to they've got to figure out how to play without Cat. Ant's got to figure out how to be that guy by himself a lot. And he had some time last year when Cat got injured, right? But it's different where it's temporary or it's injury, or versus now when like you're the guy. And they got to integrate Randall, and he's got to figure out how to play with them properly. And you're right, I'm not sure the fit is going to work, period. But I think it'll be easier to sort of have a sense of whether Julius Randle is going to work with this team at all 20 games in. Right now, it looks like a brand new player who just the rhythm's off with him and his teammates.
Yeah, Chris Finch is basically going with an 8-man rotation. And like we discussed this, right? There's the chance of him moving off of Randall sooner than later is pretty slim. They traded for him. They're going to see if it works. He's going to be in the starting rotation. Just from like an academic, like on paper perspective, I think Naz Reid makes a lot more sense in the starting group. And I like Randall a lot more with that second unit, especially because that second unit, that's another thing that they've been trying to figure out, right? Like Dante DiVincenzo is not off to a good start. He was a key component in this. He only took 6 shots last night, and his 3 is not falling. He's not like he hasn't been, I think he will get there too, but they're still trying to figure out how to use him and get him going a little bit. And they're going to need him because they're going to need that scoring. So it'll be interesting to see how Kristen addresses that.
And the other reason you want a guy like Randall to be off the bench is because he is a ball stopper. He does have a huge usage rate. And if you can get him a bunch of minutes where he can just be the guy and be the focal point, I guess that's the same theory a little bit with Russell Westbrook, maybe in Denver, like come in and inject some pace and inject some sort of like some energy and just, you'll have some minutes where you're going to produce the offense. That would seem to suit Randall better. He doesn't see himself as a bench player, right? And I'm assuming that they want him to come back.
It definitely does not seem.
Obviously, he doesn't.
Real quick before we do team of the night, producer Aaron wants to know, do you have any concern over Luka's shooting start so far? 36 and change from the floor, 26, almost 27% from 3. He's not shooting it well. Personally, I don't have any concern. I think shooters shoot and he'll be fine.
So here's the thing. I am 98% not worried. I think it'll be totally fine. I suppose to sort of circle back to our earlier conversation, maybe there is a little bit of a concern about usage and just wear and tear. Like the guy played in the finals last year. That's the longest he's ever gone. Obviously, that's a long extra season where you go into June and you play. And then he played in the Olympics, right? So he has played a lot more basketball than he normally does. And he's not necessarily a guy that's in superstars in the best shape. He would not be at the top of those ranking lists. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Something to keep an eye on. I think that's what it is too. I'm not concerned. They're 3-1. I mean, here's the other thing.
Right.
The Mavs are 3-1 with Luka not shooting the ball particularly well. Eventually, he's going to have one of those streaks like he had last year, where it's like, oh, he's just gone for like 10 straight triple doubles, and he's out of his mind. So
and he just dominated the fourth quarter. I mean, won the game. So
and he had to hit the game winning shot. Yeah, or the game sealing shot rather. Let's do team of the night, and then we'll wrap it up here. Who do you got?
I had a couple. So I was thinking about going Mavs because it was such a good bit. I'm gonna go Warriors for 2 reasons. One, Buddy Hield, baby, splash cousin. Is he a splash cousin? Can we
splash
make that
relative
a thing?
Twice removed? Yeah, sure.
Splash relative twice removed. And the Warriors, we've seen this in the past, and we've seen in the past that the Warriors just have to keep their head above water when Steph is out in order to sort of get where they want to go. And I don't know that feels as big a deal because I don't think many of us think they're going anywhere this year. The West is too deep, but you got to win as many games as you can when Steph isn't playing well. So you win a game like that, you get that kind of a game from Buddy Hield, huge performance, huge game, and it turns out it can be fun to watch Golden State even when Steph's not out there. And obviously Klay Thompson's in Dallas. So team of the night for me, Golden State Warriors.
Aaron says that they call him Splash Buddy, which great, sure. Except for one game, he's been fantastic. And not to bring
Splash
it back
Buddy.
But to bring it back to the Sixers for just a second, how perfectly Sixers is it that Buddy Hield was one of the great shooters in NBA history before getting there, and now has regained that form after leaving there, but could not hit a shot except for that one playoff game when he was in Philadelphia. He was horrendous except for that one game. It's perfect.
They can't call him Splash Buddy because of Horrible Bosses 2, where they have the Splash Buddy, Splash Daddy. They're trying to figure out what to call their invention, and they get an argument on TV, and they go, why would your buddy be in the shower with you? And he goes, why would your dad? Can't be Splash Buddy. That's all I can think of. Why would your dad?
I haven't seen the second one, but that is a very funny idea.
It's terrible, but the first 15 minutes are worth watching for that scene alone.
This is chalk for me. It's the Mavericks. I mean, the Mavs going 3-1 on a night where Luka didn't have it until the end, and Kyrie helping him out, and the two bigs looking good, and again, going to the Timberwolves and playing against a team that they knocked out of the playoffs last year in order to go to the finals, where the Wolves and Ant were super revved up for it, and the Mavs went, nah, it's still us. So yeah, I think it's the Mavericks for me. Big, not to say statement win. It's hard to have a statement win in the first week in October, but it's one of those situations where it's more of a reminder win. something for the Wolves to think about until their next meeting.
Slash cousin reminder win. We're gonna get these in the NBA.
We're doing
lexicon.
we're branding all sorts of things, trademarking both of those. You are off tomorrow. I'm back with Sam Quinn because we've got Sam on Thursdays every week this season, and then you're back on Friday with Brad Bodkin. So we want to check out both of those. And then a reminder, of course, that we're live on YouTube for both of those shows at noon Eastern. But for now, for our NBA insider Bill Reiter, I am John Gonzalez. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.